I am trying to find this.
Screen.
Yeah. Okay. Can you see this now?
Yes, it's coming up.
Okay. So this is what the Texas Medical Board published as what at my risk from a scale of 1 to 10. As you can tell, and this is the reason why this is very important, in our everyday things that we do, there's some risk. Some of them are more than the others. Even mere opening the mail, you do have some risk. But other things which I want to point people's attention to, going to the salon. So your risk goes up to about 7 on a scale of 10. Traveling on the airplane, playing basketball. And the last is actually attending a religious service of more than 500 plus, or going to the bar. So in our daily lives, I want people to remember this so that we're very careful as to what we do and how we protect ourselves. With that brief introduction, would you have a panel of people that will be talking about all of this? We have about 5 people, but I'll start from, today we have Mrs. Babajide. She's a teacher, she's well known in our community. She's been working in the education and the Houston Independent School District for over 30 years. She is very knowledgeable, although she says she's close to retirement, but she's also embracing this change and is willing to discuss with us on how this pandemic may change the entire teaching career. Also, we're privileged to have in our audience tonight, otherwise known as Sherifat Olubola Kadri. She is a nursing graduate from the School of Nursing in Kwara State in Loring. She later on did a midwifery and then moved to the US in 2002. She is a licensed RN by the Texas Board of Nursing in 2013. She's also a certified critical care nurse. And she will also be sharing experience to us. In the last few years, she's worked at, she currently works at UTMB in Galveston. Of course, she's married with 6 children, she says. It also gives me pleasure to introduce an alumni from the only medical school in Nigeria, the College of Medicine of the University of Lagos, a board-certified family physician who is currently working as an hospitalist in the Houston area. He's been practicing over 17 years, both in Houston as well as in Nigeria, and the person of Dr. Yinka Adesoya. Also, I'd like to introduce another colleague of mine who is also very active in the Physician Forum by the name of Dr. Khadijat Ogunbiyi. She went to the other medical school in Nigeria, University College Hospital in Ibadan. She completed a diploma in ophthalmology from the she's a diplomate of the West African College of Medicine in 1994. She later moved to the US and did residency in internal medicine at the Mount Sinai College in New York. And she's currently working in Houston as an hospitalist and also as a private practice. She has also been in the medical profession for a very long time. She's married with 4 children. And last but not least, and I purposely left this last person I'm going to introduce to everyone. I am really very honored to have amongst us Dr. Asisat Babajide. She's one of our children. She was born and raised in Houston. She completed her undergraduate education at one of the prestigious colleges in the US at the Princeton University, where she majored in molecular biology. She then attended another outstanding medical school, the Tufts University, and with a passion in mental health, she did a psychiatry at the Columbia University in New York, and subsequently went to fellowship at the University of California in Los Angeles. She is currently working as an attending physician in the Baylor College of Medicine as a psychiatrist. She is very experienced, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion. She works with children, she works with adolescents, young adults, as well as their family. She's going to lead this discussion as she debunks, prior to talking about COVID, she's going to talk about some of the stigma of mental health. We'll open with that, and then we'll go into the into COVID. All the panelists give me a great honor to introduce you to the Masjid community. So you are all welcome. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. See, I have to adjust my cap. Today's event is an August event, very important. So, as Dr. Adink has rightly said, we're going to get started. We're not going to waste much of our time. We'll call on Dr. Aziza Babajide. Let's have you talk first of all.
Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone, and thank you, Dr. Adeyinka, for that introduction. So what I'll do is start out with just a brief discussion, as Dr. Adeyinka mentioned, about stigma and some of the ways in which the pandemic is impacting everyone, really. I don't know anybody who is not touched by this pandemic. And then I'd like to open it up for questions. So the pandemic really has drastically changed the way that we live our lives. I don't think anybody can argue that. There's shutdowns, quarantining, social distancing, and with all of those things, there's tended to be a lot of focus on the social and economic impact of the pandemic. However, we have started to see, even from the beginning of the pandemic, really, we started to see that it's actually taking a significant emotional toll on many people, even people who may not have struggled with mental health issues in the past. And so what I'd like to do is I'm going to show you a headline. Unfortunately, I can't show you the entire article, but I'm going to share my screen here. Hopefully this works. Oh, interesting. Let's see. Oh, I don't think it's going to work. I'm not sure if it's going to work. Really what I wanted to show you was just a brief headline. It's an article that was published in The Atlantic, which is a news magazine. And in that article, the headline is, "This is not a normal mental health disaster. If SARS is any lesson, the psychological effects of the novel coronavirus will long outlast the pandemic itself." And really what the article goes into is just how significantly people are impacted by economic, social, various different aspects of this pandemic that are impacting all of our lives. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us tend to think of mental health as not being part of our overall health, as being something that is reserved for people who are damaged or quote unquote crazy, but it's actually not the case at all. Really, mental health, I think of as a part of our entire well-being and something that's really important to pay attention to, particularly when people are going through these such stressful times. And so for various reasons, the pandemic has left many individuals experiencing heightened levels of stress. So there's lost jobs, social isolation. Many of you have already experienced the sudden demand to homeschool your children while you may be also working, the list goes on. And on top of this, there's the knowledge that someone you know, right? There's the knowledge that someone that you might know has tested positive or that you yourself may test positive. I've worked with a lot of families in which several family members have tested positive for COVID, with some even requiring ventilators, having to go to the ICU. Some family members, unfortunately, have even passed away because of COVID. So if there's anything that we've learned is that nobody is really above infection and everyone is at potential risk, which is why it's really important to heed that message that Dr. Adeyinka mentioned in the very beginning. In my line of work, I see children and families who have a wide variety of mental health needs. So a common misconception, which I alluded to earlier, but a common misconception is that the field of mental health and psychiatry is solely focused on the most sick, right? So therefore, to suggest that you are seeing a psychiatrist or to suggest that you may need help from someone with a mental health background is to suggest or admit that you may be crazy or damaged, which is not at all true, right? I work with children and families who have struggles that many of us face, including death and loss, academic challenges, and social anxieties. And it's been very rewarding to see people get better over time. And so those three things that I just mentioned, right, those are things that people were dealing with even prior to the pandemic. But those three things are actually some of the biggest things that I think we'll hear from others about today on the panel, but those are some of the biggest things that people are facing right now. I don't know a lot of people who have not at this point, maybe earlier in the pandemic, not as much, but at this point, a lot of people know someone, at least one other person who has had COVID. Most people know either someone who has children and they're trying to work and figure out their education, or that you might be a child yourself, you might be in college. So all of these things are impacting everyone. So the number of people experiencing these challenges has now ballooned. And I think that what the pandemic is exposing is that we're all susceptible to stress at various levels. Right, so mental health shouldn't be viewed as something that refers to those we view as damaged. It actually should be viewed as an important factor in our assessment of our overall health. So I do not know many people who would not find the prospect of job loss or death of a loved one distressing. It's a normal human reaction to a very traumatic experience that we're all kind of sharing in right now. Also important is to acknowledge if or when we need help, right? And I think that this is really important because I think that a lot of times we don't, and I'm a child of the Nigerian community, right? So we don't always want to admit that we need help. We don't always want to acknowledge that we might be struggling. And it's only by doing that that we can be kind to ourselves, one, and it's only by doing that too that others can step in to help us if we need it. But if we can't allow ourselves and be kind enough to ourselves to acknowledge that we might need help, that's when we get into trouble and we can struggle even more. And the way that individuals respond to stress, it varies highly from person to person, right? So some people will be stressed and their response is with irritation or anger. I know personally myself, I get a little snippy if I'm stressed, right? Other people will start overthinking things, really, really worrying to the point that it's very difficult to control, right? People feel sad. Some people, particularly if they're not acknowledging the feelings and the stress that they're undergoing, can start to experience even physical symptoms. So pain in their body, right? Sleeping changes, eating more. There are lots of different ways that people respond to stress and that people might be struggling right now. So I want to end this, aspect of the discussion just with a research study, again, to kind of piggyback off of what Dr. Adeyinka was saying earlier in terms of the importance of, managing risk, but then also highlighting, again, everything that I've mentioned just now in that how pervasive or how much COVID is touching people at this point, or the pandemic is impacting people's lives. So there was a study done in the end of May. So that's about 2 months into the pandemic at this point. So at the very end of May, the last 2 weeks, researchers who were it was a collaboration between Harvard Medical School and University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. So these researchers conducted a survey of about 1,500 people, not patients, right? So these are not people that are necessarily seeing a psychiatrist, it's people just out in the community, right? And this was a group of people who was felt to reflect or be a reflective sample of the nation at large. So what they found in this sample, and keep in mind that this is only 2 months into the pandemic. We're now in August, right? So this has been going on for much longer at this point. So at the end of May, what they found is that 38% of households at that time had experienced job loss or reduction in income due to the pandemic. 50% of that sample experienced at least 8 specific types of pandemic-related emotional impact in the prior month. So that's in April. 90% reported experiencing at least one type of pandemic-related emotional impact. So what I take from this is that almost everybody experienced some type of emotional impact from what was going on, from the sequelae and the consequences of this pandemic, right? So 90% isn't 100%, right? But this is also, right, in May. Again, I want to reiterate, we're in August right now. So I wonder what that data would look like if it was obtained today. And so I think that, again, I just wanted to highlight this study to show that a lot of people are being impacted by this, and a lot of people may be struggling emotionally right now. So I hope that I've started us off with the understanding that the pandemic is affecting everyone, that many people may be experiencing stress, and that experiencing mental health challenges at this time is not a fault or a deficit, and it's really important to ask for help if you need it. And so with that, I'll end there. Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Dr. Babajide, Dr. Zizat Babajide. So you heard it from her. She has mentioned that do not think what you're going through is unique. It's almost like every one of us is going through it. But as of May, 90% we're experiencing one thing or the other. We're in August, so maybe more than 100% if possible now experiencing. Even those who believe this coronavirus is a hoax probably are experiencing one thing or the other now. So alhamdulillah. We'll continue from there. But before we continue further, before I call on all the other panelists, I'd like to also quickly talk about other things. First of all, we realized today we're going to leave the forum for experts. Only experts can talk. I'm an expert in talkology, so I'm talking. So that's my own expertise. But the medical experts and the educators, they are going to do the talking today. So if you're not an expert, sorry, we're not going to call you today. Number 2 is, how you can contribute. Even though you're not an expert, you can still contribute. One way is to send questions. We highly encourage your questions. You can put your questions in the chat box. We're going to be monitoring it. And if you want to ask a question, we do allow you to raise hand electronically. You can raise hands electronically, and if we have time, we'll call on you. But mind you, when you contribute, we are not looking for comments. We are not looking for opinions, because we're not trading opinions today. What we're trading is facts. We're trading facts today. It's very, very important, because we know there's so many misinformation out there, especially given that recently one of our own African sister recently put out a big misinformation, and that's been spreading like wildfire on social media. I can't even believe that people that I thought they were educated keep sharing that too. So we're not going to trade opinions, we're going to trade facts. So we have to also be mindful of that. And also, when you do have the forum the chance to talk, please be mindful that your contribution will be limited to 30 seconds. So please, so you have to make it short and precise. So having said that, I want to thank Dr. Ziza again, and I call on Dr. Adesanya. Have I seen you today, Dr. Adesanya? Let's see.
Yes, he's here.
I didn't make him a co-host. I'm going to make him a co-host now. Let's see. So he can unmute himself. 1 second, Dr. Adesanya, please be patient with me. Okay, Dr. Adesanya, you can unmute yourself. So I want to start with Dr. Adesanya. So Dr. Adinka showed us a pictogram, a chart of high-risk areas, those who are at risk of COVID, and the level of risk based on your activity. I like soccer, and I see there I don't see soccer there. Am I not at risk? So I don't see soccer there. Can I just go out and start playing soccer? But in addition to that, Dr. Adesoya, other activities, going to gym, going to play basketball, why is that a risk? Given that the contact is almost like, instant, and you withdraw, you're not staying glued to one another for a long time. Explain the risk in that area.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you for this forum. Let me get close to my my microphone. So, alhamdulillah, we are all still alive today to talk about coronavirus. We pray to Almighty Allah to forgive all the departed souls and grant them al-Jannah Firdaus. I would start by saying we are all in this together. It's not about Adesoya's family or Adeyinka's family. It's everybody in this world that is facing the coronavirus pandemic. And without going political, just like Brother Shakir said, this is not about opinion. Coronavirus doesn't know if you're a Democrat, it doesn't know if you're a Republican, it doesn't know if you're independent. Coronavirus, if you dare coronavirus, it hits you, it infects you. And at this point, there is no definitive treatment that we can put money on to treat coronavirus. So science is still looking for a way out for all of us. And the evidence is evolving every day. So what we might say today as being true, new studies may come out tomorrow and say, well, maybe not true. So which is sometimes what we see on TV regarding the COVID-19 task force in the White House saying, well, what you said yesterday is not what you're saying today. That's because the evidence is evolving. So regarding contacting coronavirus, there's a lot of studies that's shown that when you get very close to someone that is infected with coronavirus, you can get infected too. There's a lot of factors involved in getting infected by getting close to someone that has coronavirus. Because coronavirus infects, for the most part, the respiratory tract, which is getting from the nose all the way into the throat and then going down to the lungs. When it gets in the lung, there are these receptors we call ACE receptors. Those ACE receptors are like proteins in the lungs that binds with the coronavirus, and then the chain of event would start. In addition to that, when the coronavirus gets in the lungs, it would cause a lot of problems, like damage to the lungs itself. The lungs get filled with water. Our blood start clotting. There's these small blood vessels in the lung that'll start clotting, and it's very hard for somebody to breathe when the lungs are infected, especially when they are damaged. So talking about sports, now we all know that when we exercise, our depth of breathing gets deeper to breathe, and we breathe faster and we breathe deeper. So when somebody takes a deep breath, when you're breathing out, it's very easy for you to let out whatever you have in your lungs. Then you just exhale and all this virus come out. When the virus come out and you're very close to that person, you can inhale the virus, especially when you're also taking a deep breath. It's like for those people that work in the hospital, when somebody has asthma and you're telling them to take a deep breath when they're using their inhaler, they're taking deep breath because you want them to take that medicine into their lungs. So the same thing when you're doing contact sport, when you're very close to your opponent or close to your friend or close to someone, that has a coronavirus, and especially when the viral count is very high, it's very easy to breathe in the virus, and then the virus goes straight to your lungs. And we all have these receptors called the ACE receptors, where the virus can really get in the system and cause all the problem. I'm trying to make it as basic as possible. Of course, it's not that straightforward. So that's how you get it. Now, with basketball, if you're going to tackle somebody, you're going to defend somebody, it's like you're breathing in somebody's face. If you're going to dunk basketball and somebody's right under the rim, it's like when you're going and dunking the basketball and you're breathing out, you're breathing in everybody's face. And then it's very easy to infect someone. The same thing for soccer. You have to tackle someone. You have to defend the opponent. So that way it gets you really, really close to people. And if somebody have like 2-3 people with coronavirus infection, and a lot of people don't even know, because the majority of the people are going to be asymptomatic. A lot of people are going to get asymptomatic. What that means is they're going to have the coronavirus infection and they're not going to have symptoms. So there is no way for you to tell who is going to infect you and who is not going to infect you. So and based on the study, there's something called R0, which is if one person has coronavirus, how many people can they potentially infect? So one person with coronavirus would potentially infect 3 people. So from one person, now that one person infects 3 people, then from 3 people, if those 3 people go back to their homes and infect 3 other people, so we're going from 1 to 3, and if you multiply back that by 3, you're going to 9. So we're going to 9 people. Those 9 people will infect, multiply by 3, then we're going to 27 people. And then you go, just keep going, multiply by 3. Now, compared to flu infection, somebody has a flu, one person has flu infection, that one person will infect another person with flu. So it's going from 1 to 1 to 1 to 1. But then for coronavirus, you're going from 1 to 3 to 9 to 27, and you just keep going like that, which is why coronavirus is very infectious. So to answer that question regarding sports, especially when it's contact sport, there is no way you're going to defend somebody with basketball and maintain 6 feet. So you're just going to let your opponent in. The same thing for soccer. It's very hard to keep 6 feet. So that's the way, the closer you get, the more likely you're going to be getting the coronavirus infection from the person that is already infected. So that's how sport makes it very easy to get somebody infected. A typical example is during the NBA season, you would see it started from one person in the Utah Jazz basketball team. And then before you know it, you have other people getting infected in the team as well. And NBA was very smart to stop that season whenever they stopped it. So that's about how to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adesanya. I really enjoyed that. It's good learning. So I can see why coronavirus is spreading like